Hey, what's up, Grease Monkey? Mark Joy here. In today's video, I'll be exploring the exciting and high-tech world of avionics and be diving into how to become an avionics technician. So whether you're passionate about aviation, fascinated by advanced electronics, or looking for a rewarding and dynamic career in aviation that doesn't get you too dirty, becoming a spark chaser might be the perfect path for you. Today we'll be covering everything you need to know, from types of education, certifications, different types of roles, and how to land that first job. So buckle up, get ready for a knowledge bomb on your career in avionics. Okay, so for this career path, you're at least going to want your airframe certificate so you can sign off your work and be more of an asset to potential employers. And so if you're at least interested in getting your airframe, I recommend just getting your power plant as well so that you can be more of an asset to employers. I wanted to offer a free A&P quick start guide here that will walk you through the entire process, including the 2 paths you can take. And if you're currently working as an avionics technician or an airframe or power plant technician and you don't have your A&P certificate, this will walk you through the process. And even if you're in the military and have been doing avionics work or also doing airframe or power plant work and don't have your A&P and want to get over to the civilian side, this guide will help you understand how to get it. So check it out in the link in the description below, markhjoy.com/quickstart. It's my free gift to you today. Okay, so enough about gifts. Let's get into how to become an avionics technician. So there are 3 different types of roles that are out there for avionics technicians. I just wanted to talk about those briefly so you kind of have an understanding of the different types of work that you'll be doing as an avionics technician. So the first one that I wanted to talk about is installations. So personally, I was actually an avionics installation technician myself at Duncan Aviation for 5 years and ended up becoming a master technician within about 3 years. So what does an avionics installation technician do? So they're going to be installing brand new systems or modifying existing systems in the aircraft. So as an installation technician, you're going to be installing brand new wiring, modifying the existing wiring, maybe splicing into some different connectors or existing cables. You're going to be installing new components like radios or transponders or ground proximity warning system, whatever it might be. And you'll also be physically putting the contacts on the wires and building up new connectors altogether. You could be working on a supplemental type certificate or STC, maybe airworthiness directive or service bulletins that include any electrical works. So there's a variety of different documents that you could be working off of to install or modify existing systems. So that's installations in a nutshell. The second role is an avionics line technician. So a line technician is going to be dealing with problems with the existing aircraft, not installing a new system. So say a pilot finds a problem, they bring the aircraft into the shop, and you're going to be the person who does the troubleshooting to fix the problem. And the third role is going to be a bench repair technician. So in that role, you're going to be the person who receives a box, computer, whatever it might be, takes it to the bench, disassembles it, and works to the schematics of that specific component. And you're going to be doing component level troubleshooting to identify a problem with the computer itself, repair it, and then return the component to service so that it can go back out into the aircraft in a working, serviceable condition. So those are the different types of avionics roles. And next I wanted to talk about the different skills that you're going to need to perform avionics work. So the first and probably biggest one is the ability to troubleshoot systems. So probably the most complicated troubleshooting would be for bench technicians where you're taking apart the box, getting inside and figuring out what's wrong with the specific components that are installed on the different boards, down to resistors and transistors and transformers and all of that kind of stuff. Otherwise, you're going to have to be checking on the aircraft systems and maybe doing some continuity testing or voltage checks to isolate problems and maybe do some wiring repair or replace different components once you've identified what the problem is. So troubleshooting is a huge part of this job. Another important skill is to have a good foundation in electrical theory. So basic equations like E equals IR or voltage equation. And those are types of things that you'll get from school. And also reading wiring diagrams or schematics. So understanding the different electrical systems in the aircraft and how the signals flow through the wires to the different components. And I actually have a helpful video on reading electrical wiring diagrams for aircraft if you want to check that out. Having hands-on skills with tools, being able to remove and install different components like seats, panels, other interior parts would be really, really helpful. And fine motor skills are also really, really important. So you're going to be handling a lot of really, really tiny pieces, and you might even be using tweezers to do some of the work in avionics. So having fine motor skills and like a stable hand is going to be really helpful for this career path. And the last skill that I wanted to mention was soldering. So not extremely common, but maybe depending on what kind of work you're going to be doing, soldering could be common, probably more with bench testing or bench repairs rather. And occasionally you'll bump into some installations where you have to do some soldering. Or if you're a line technician, you might need to do a soldering repair if you find a problem. So those are the different skills that are going to be important for avionics technicians. All right, next I want to talk about the typical work settings for avionics technicians. So generally it's going to be in a hangar, at a repair station, or actually out on the flight line, depending on the role that you do. So probably a line technician is going to be out on the flight line if there's something that can be fixed easily. And so that being said, you could be exposed to the elements, weather. So if it's really hot or really cold, that's just something to think about. I know in the winters in Michigan, it was very cold. Hangar doors would open up and everybody sort of runs for their coats, and then they close up and suddenly everyone's hot. So people are sweating. So it just depends. So weather is a thing to consider as a condition for this job. You're probably going to be working in very tight spaces, so you could be in what's called a coffin, depending on the type of airplane that you're working in. So maybe you take up a floor panel and you have to be inside this very tight space and working with your hands, like in this position. So it can be very tight spaces, or in hellholes where it might be the tail or something, and you're just like have to get in a very specific contorted position to get into like be able to do your work. So there can be some very tight spaces involved with this. And I also wanted to mention that compared to airframe or power plant work, avionics is probably a little bit cleaner. So you're not necessarily the person who's going to be like defueling an airplane or working in hydraulics. But I will say that in a lot of cases, you may be crawling around inside of the aircraft at the bottom where there are fluids, including hydraulics and fuel and oil and that kind of thing, but you're probably not necessarily going to take a jet fuel bath or anything like that. So just wanted to mention that as kind of one of the perks of this being an avionics technician. All right, so next up I wanted to talk about the different educational pathways you can take to become an avionics technician. If you're younger and still in middle school or high school and are considering work in avionics, you're going to be taking STEM kinds of classes, science, technology, engineering, math. So those are great classes to take just to have that sort of technical foundation in high school. And also if you could find a technical training that goes along with your high school education, that would be really beneficial. And then for secondary education, you can go to a community college or technical school or university and get avionics training. You don't have to have a degree to become an avionics technician, but that could be kind of a bonus going along with it. You get an associate's degree or bachelor's degree in an avionics related field. That's another option. And then third, you can also just do on-the-job training. So maybe there are some opportunities out there where you already have some technical experience, hands-on experience, or maybe you install like stereo systems in cars or something along those lines, where there's a repair station that's maybe looking to train people in avionics work, and you could possibly get your experience that way. It might be a little bit more difficult, but it is an option. Or if you're working as an airframe or power plant technician, maybe the workplace that you work at offers cross-training in avionics, and that's something that you're interested in. You could do it that way and have that specific training. And actually, when I was working at Duncan Aviation, there were a handful of folks that actually worked in the interior shop who ended up becoming avionics installation technicians and worked with me. They were not necessarily people who had any training in avionics, but were at least interested in it and knew myself and the managers that worked in the avionics department. They were willing to bring those people over from the interior shop, and they got on-the-job training and then eventually hired on full-time. And I myself actually did cross-training into avionics line, so I got paired up with a night shift worker who gave me the cross-training to become avionics line technician, so that was really helpful to kind of give me just a better background in avionics overall. So definitely a different type of work compared to the installation side, but still important to know that there are other options at places that you already work at where you can get avionics training from them. So a couple of different pathways you can take to become an avionics technician. All right, so next I want to talk about certificates and licenses. One thing that I wanted to mention right off the bat was that there's actually no FAA certificate for avionics, like the airframe and power plant. So that's one thing that's kind of unique about this. But there are other certificates that you can get that are not required by any means, but could be helpful for you when you start looking for jobs, aside from any technical training that maybe you got at community college or technical school or university. However, aircraft electrical and avionics work does fall under the airframe certificate. So I would highly recommend at least getting your airframe certificate from the FAA so that you can sign your work. You'll be a much bigger asset for any employers that are out there. It's not going to require you, after you do your work, to go find a certificated A&P or airframe mechanic to sign your work after you've completed it. So that saves employers a lot of time. And the last part about the FAA side is if you work at a repair station, a Part 145 repair station, you could get your repairman certificate and be able to sign off work that you're doing. And that would probably be if you're a bench technician at a repair station. And like I said, certificates that are not required by employers or by the FAA by any means, but are nice to have for the avionics side include the FCC, which is a commercial radio operator's license, or the NCAT AET license, which is administered by ASTM. So these two licenses are knowledge licenses, so you can study and take the test and they give you a certificate and you can add that to your resume as a bonus for employers. And for these two licenses that I mentioned, I'll put links down in the description for the NCAT and FCC, different links out to where you can get information on how to get those certificates. And also offered by ASTM, in addition to the NCAT, there are 5 other certificates that they offer: aircraft electronics installation, autonomous navigation systems, dependent navigation systems, onboard communications and safety systems, and last but not least, radio communication systems. All right, so after all of that, there's no avionics certificate required by law through the FAA, but there are the FCC and NCAT tests that you can get to add as a bonus to your resume and knowledge. All right, so moving on to gaining experience, one way to start off your career would be to get an apprenticeship or an internship. So while you're studying, you can go to maybe a repair station or different employer that offers avionics work, and maybe they're looking for labor and don't want to pay a ton, but that's a great way while you're studying to get that experience. And so you can kind of come out of the gate after you finish going to school and just have that ready for your resume to take to your employer and say, hey, I've already had an apprenticeship or an internship. I kind of understand what's going on. I can probably hit the floor running for you. Or if you don't have time for that, after you finish your training, you can find an entry-level job, and it could kind of just be like a license to learn situation where they know you have avionics experience and they're going to trust you to go out there and learn from other technicians that have more experience. And then as far as networking goes, to find jobs, I would highly recommend LinkedIn. Of course, if you know people in the industry, aviation is pretty tight-knit community, so you can find other people that maybe you know or met through school who could connect you to someone who could offer you a job. Or I would recommend joining professional organizations like PAMA, Professional Aviation Maintenance Association, where you can network with other aircraft technicians and find avionics jobs that way. All right, so last thing I want to talk about in this video is continuous learning and advancement in your career. And maybe this is obvious, but you just want to stay updated in the avionics community about different technologies that might be emerging or different things that are going on in the aviation industry regarding avionics. And that could be as simple as reading avionics publications like Avionics Magazine or Avionics News. And another thing you could do is ask your employer if they're able to send you to different manufacturer-specific trainings on electrical systems or avionics systems. That could be really helpful for aircraft that you work on that are really common, or maybe the place that you already work at, they would offer training in-house. which they might do right when they hire you on, or it's something that you maybe need to catch up with. Maybe there's like a specific model dash number that you need to catch up on in order to do your job better. And then other career advancement opportunities in avionics that I wanted to mention, you could do things like engineering, where you become the person who does integration of new systems in order to create an STC, and you would be the person who creates wiring diagrams and goes out and understands the existing systems, and somebody on your team makes a sale for a new system that's going to be installed, and you take the new components and try to mesh them together with the existing components so that the technicians can go out and install the system. And if you wanted to get into sales, you would be the person who works with different customers and tells them about the products and the benefits and tries to convince them that they need to buy the system. Or you could get into management, so that could be as simple as managing a small installation team or line team, or you're the manager of the entire department. Could be kind of varied across the board there, but I don't think you necessarily have to have a degree to become a manager. In my case, again, working at Duncan Aviation, I had opportunities to become a manager, but I chose not to just because it wasn't something that I wanted to do. But just saying that there are people that didn't have any sort of degree in management and were just able to be managers at the place that I worked at. Okay, so just to do a quick recap of this video, I just wanted to mention the main points here. So the first one that I wanted to say was there's no FAA certificate in avionics, so you don't need to worry about that. But I did want to emphasize that it would be really important to get at least your airframe certificate so that you can sign off your own work. It's going to make you much more valuable to employers. You're going to want to be very interested in troubleshooting, or the person who goes out and fixes things, because I don't know if there's ever been a job that I was a part of where everything went perfectly. I don't know if that's really possible, even in life in general. So troubleshooting is very, very important. And then also those very fine motor skills, because in avionics, you're gonna be working with very tiny pieces and parts, whether it's contacts or screws or different electrical components, or even soldering. For education, you could go to a community college, a technical school, or a university. But keep in mind that you don't necessarily have to have a degree to become an avionics technician, but it could be helpful for you to get a leg up in the job world. And for the types of roles in avionics, there's installation side, which is going to be a person who installs a new system or modifies an existing one. A line technician, who's going to be the person who fixes problems with the existing aircraft systems. And then also a bench technician, who is going to be a person that repairs the electrical components inside of the boxes or computers. Certification and licensing wise, important certificates to look into are FCC radio operator's license and the NCAT AET by ASTM. And to gain experience and start down that career path, you're going to want to look at apprenticeships or internships while you're in school or even after. Or if you don't have time for that, after you finish your training, you could just look for entry-level positions. And to start networking, I recommend LinkedIn or joining professional aviation organizations. And as you go, I encourage you to keep learning about avionics, either through reading up about it or asking for training through your employer. And then keep in mind, as an avionics technician, there is upward mobility, whether you become a manager or a salesperson or an engineer, as a couple of different options to think about. Okay, and before we wrap up finally here, I just wanted to mention again that I have a free A&P Quick Start guide. If you're interested in becoming an avionics technician, I highly recommend at least getting your airframe certificate. Again, lots of emphasis there, but it's going to be in the link in the description down below, markhjoy.com/quickstart. It'll walk you through the entire process, whether you are currently an airframe and power plant mechanic looking to get your A&P certificate, or you're an avionics technician for that matter. This will walk you through the process. If you are in the military and are thinking about doing civilian maintenance, this will walk you through that as well. So no need to even like or subscribe to this channel. I just want you to download that free guide. It's my gift to you. Hopefully it helps you out to get your A&P. And last but not least, I'm always looking for new content ideas. So if there's something you're struggling with or want to learn about that I haven't covered yet, because I only have a few videos out so far, please put a comment down below and I will get to it as soon as I can. Thanks everyone for watching. Hope this was helpful, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks.